5 minutes. I know that's strange. So by now, it's been made clear as we come to the conclusion of the hearing that depending on adversarial nations like China for life-saving medicines, it's dangerous. So I'm not going to repeat what has already been said here today. Instead, I want to talk about some solutions. So we have American manufacturers ready to produce the antibiotics, the generics, the APIs that our system depends on, but they're getting crushed by subsidized competition from China and India while navigating a US system that buries them in red tape and rewards the lowest bidder no matter where it is made. This is a problem. So if we're serious about fixing this, we need to reward resilience. That means long-term federal purchasing contracts for essential medicines. It means fast-tracking approvals for domestic facilities, and it means treating pharmaceutical manufacturing like the national security issue that it is. We also need to think bigger. Reshoring can't just mean the final pill or vial. It has to include the full chain, starting from key intermediaries and chemical inputs. If we're still importing the ingredients from China, we're still vulnerable. It should be about incentivizing domestic production of these early stage materials to truly rebuild them from the ground up. And that means working closely with trusted allies as well, especially in Western Europe, to diversify our sourcing and to build in redundancy. So if one facility going offline, it doesn't mean that we are putting other people at risk. The bottom line is that we cannot defend American lives with a drug supply chain that depends on the goodwill of Beijing or New Delhi. So I want to thank you all for being here as witnesses before this committee and for speaking on what's working, what's not, so that we can finally get this straight. Mr. Boland, you've been highlighting the early successes of the Pulse platform. Now, as we work to bring pharmaceutical manufacturing back to the United States and rebuild resilience into the supply chain, I'm very concerned about the counterfeit and substandard drugs slipping through the cracks, particularly from overseas sources. Since Pulse has launched, what are the most alarming trends that you've seen, whether in product type, origin, or distribution patterns, and what does that tell you about where the biggest vulnerabilities lie?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the most disturbing thing that we've seen is the fact that the very first scans that we conducted utilizing the tool found illegitimate and counterfeit products. And that's just in a handful of states that are using the tool so far. The reality is that where there is money to be made, bad actors are going to find ways to insert things into the supply chain. So it's going to require vigilance on the part of the state boards of pharmacy, as well as the pharmacies themselves, to really think about where they're purchasing their medications. I think one of the other challenges is when you have, we've talked today a lot about what happens as products are being manufactured. We still have issues within the supply chain from the point a product enters the supply chain to the point it's dispensed. There's not a lot of visibility and transparency in the supply chain. And so I would encourage Congress to think about ways that you can start to unlock some of the capabilities that do exist. The fact that this law, and you can track a product down to the saleable unit, that unlocks the ability to really trace medications and address issues like drug shortages, keeping illicit medications out of the supply chain. So I think let's leverage the investments that's already been made. That would be what I would recommend for Congress.
And you mentioned of the states that have adopted it. What are the states that are currently utilizing the platform?
So we have over 30 states that are currently utilizing the platform.
I'm not going to make you name them all.
Thank you for that. Yeah. But we're finding good and early success with that, and so we're going to continue to help support our members so that they and provide additional tools to help them detect.
Okay, and in the interest of time, I've got a minute left. So you talked about the needing transparency in the supply chain, and you said Congress needs to do more in that space. So as we're effectively working to reshore the production and reinforce these supply chains, how can we ensure that some of the regulatory tools like Pulse don't detect, that just don't detect threats, but actually help eliminate them as well?
And so when you speak about that supply chain visibility, it's really getting members of the supply chain to be more transparent and communicative with each other. There is so much information that's moving from the point of manufacture to distribution to dispensing, but no one shares it. It's only when they have to share it. And so I think the supply chain being incentivized to actually do something like the National Control Tower that existed back during COVID, that was some of the most widespread visibility that the supply chains had.